Welcome to my podcast, Bathrobe Conversations with Black Women. I am your host, Rona Muhammad, and I am here in Las Vegas, my birthday weekend. Woo-hoo! All of those wonderful sounds you hear in the background are my very best girlfriends and family, really, who love me and I love them, and they decided to come to Sin City. We're not doing any sins that we're going to talk about, but we are here for my inaugural production and shooting of episodes of this podcast. I've already gone and done one. She helped me birth this baby, Nick Cobra Johnson, you saw in the previous episode, and we're here now with I don't even know what to call this woman, but I mean, you're talking about 37 years of friendship. We met when I was
the broom.
Oh my God. She's going to talk about the broom. We met in St. Louis, Missouri, which is where I'm from. She's a phenomenal woman, as you're going to hear about, and just another person in my family that's in my village, another one of my people, right, who, my tribe, who get me, and I get her. But she's a tangible example of tenacity, humiliation,
humility.
Yes. Well, sometimes we humiliate each other, but no, humility. This is my safe space. So this is when I say, when you have a safe space, this is what it looks like. This friendship, this woman. Jimese, Bennett, Piggy. Welcome to my podcast, friends. There's a number of other things I want to tell you all about her, but you're just going to hear about it as we move forward.
Yes, thank
you
for having me.
You're welcome. Are you kidding me? Anyway, so I'm starting off all the podcasts with asking this a question, right? And maybe my girlfriend Nick will help me with getting it trademarked, but I want to know from you, Jimese, what's your Black woman experience?
I feel like my Black woman experience, the first word that comes to mind would be embracing.
Okay.
I grew up around a lot of strong Black women that were all different complexions, different sizes, and so they, were survivors. So that too, they taught me that. But I say embracing because we were like a village. We helped each other. Where one fell short, the other pulled that person up.
Right.
So I always had that as an example, or even if, we had vulnerabilities, you just felt like in that collective of women. And of course, on the outside, I feel like the world lended things that made the experience sometimes challenging. So we always had that. So yeah, that's what I would say.
I love that. And I asked that question because, unfortunately, the world places this pressure on us as Black women that all of our experiences are the same, right? We all, think the same, act the same. Part of my reason for wanting to do the podcast was that so that we can control our own narrative, right? Stop allowing, reality TV that's scripted and what they see sometimes some Black women do or how they act be our narrative and then judge us based off things that are really outside of our control and really the control of the women who are actually on the show, in my opinion. So I'm asking that question, in terms of your Black woman experience, because yours is unique to you, just like your DNA, right? And really I hope that other women come into that understanding of that your experience, your story, your walk, your journey, all is for you. And so you don't need to judge yourself or compare yourself based on somebody else's experience, right?
And it should be limitless. I feel like what we have inside of us is rooted, and not a lot of people explore that. But what we get from the outside, I feel, is always trying to force us into or confine us to a box, and we're limitless.
Right.
And I feel like there's this constant no, you're not gonna keep me in this box. So yeah.
Well, and
in your life.
And sometimes we keep ourselves, or we place our own selves in those proverbial boxes. But you talked about a broom, Jimese Bennett. Can you please share with my listening audience how we met, and at least your recollection, and now I'll add to it. But from your vantage point, how did we meet, and how was that experience?
Well, my family is from St. Louis. I was born in Hollywood, California, and moved, to St. Louis during my formative years, came back. And then 1 year of high school, I lived there. And I went to an all-girls school, and I needed a date for the winter formal. My sister's very good friend, she was like, oh, my nephew can take her. We all went to Catholic school. And so I went to meet him, but he was out with another girl. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I saw this person who I was just like,
right, because the nephew happened to be my brother.
Yes,
he was my brother.
So we go over there to meet, and her aunt was like, I'm so sorry he's not here. And I was like, it's okay. So I see Rona, and I don't know, there was just something about her that we all love, that energy. And I remember I was like, even at that young age, like, she's gonna be my friend. And so her grandmother asked her to go down to her aunt's house,
who lived down the block, down the same street.
I should run down Alicia's. Her name is Alicia. Run down Alicia's and take this broom. So she was like, do you want to go with me? And we just connected. And from that moment on, we were rarely apart. And our relationship has, I won't even call it ups and downs. We've just had our experiences.
Right.
But it never, ever separated the love that we've ever had for each other, or the true friendship. So,
and for us, it was a relationship that overcame distance, because you moved back to California, and then I went to DC and went off to college. Well, you went off to college, and we just maintained just this. I always say that the bond was just started from a very innocent and genuine place, that it just afforded the room and space for us to be ourselves within the friendship and give ourselves the space to grow, but always maintaining the connection. But the innocent piece was like, we used to X off the days in the calendar for when we were going to visit each other, and we have this kind of running joke that when it gets right to the last kind of day, we do the final countdown.
Yes,
it's the final countdown. So, so I mean, So I just wanted my listening audience to kind of get a understanding of just this connection, because we can finish each other's sentences. We look at each other sometimes without saying anything and just break out into a giggle. Like, it's the most, sometimes my sons seeing it, they're like sick to their stomach, like, ugh, like, no. But I still get very much excited and butterflies in my stomach when I know that I'm gonna see you, when we're together, even when we're talking on the phone.
Yeah.
Because my mind always just goes right back to that time and that space.
We got a lot of history.
Yeah, 37 years. I mean, I'm only 49, so that's
old and I'm told.
Well, no, yeah. Thank God there was no internet back then, or cameras with cell phones with cameras. Like, so that's great. So Jimese, don't be reading my notes. Y'all look at her. She all in my business. She all in my talking points. Want to know where I'm going next. So Jimese, you've been in the education arena, field, industry for years.
Almost 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
I know, yes.
I just want you to talk about that. I want you to talk about that experience. I want you to talk about how it was for you entering into it, why you chose that of all professions, and then really after 30 years, like, where are you, and and what are some of the changes that you've seen?
When I was a child, I used to want to always play school, and I remember one point I was at recess, and I went up to a group of girls, and I would always count out like who were my students, and they were like, Going away from here, Jimese. Don't nobody want to play school. I was like, okay. So I always
we already
loved,
at school. I don't want to play school at school.
I always loved that component, but I didn't think about being a teacher. I didn't major in education undergrad. I was a business major.
Oh, wow.
And I think I chose that because my family, I grew up with a grandmother who was the first woman in Earl, Arkansas to own a home.
Wow.
And
Wow.
she, lied to the white sharecroppers and said that her husband purchased it for her, and
I didn't even know that.
But had passed away. Yeah. And then when he came home from the war, they were like, they found out that she was actually the owner, and they said, we'll burn this house to the ground. And that was the start of, my family's legacy. My grandmother then left and came to California. Well, some other, steps along the way, but basically ended up in California. And at that time, the way that a Black woman could probably go into business other than being something in the domestic field was, taking care of the mentally ill. Because that was something that no matter what race, people did not want that. So definitely, I would say, a lot of her clients were white because when their loved ones had mental health challenges, they didn't really want to take care of them per se. So she had boarding care homes, and she was able to really grow her business because there was a demand.
Right.
So I grew up seeing this Black woman, this strong Black woman who used to, she used to clean houses for Jerry Lewis. She was his maid.
Oh my gosh.
For a long time.
Jimese Bennett, I
Yes.
did not know that.
Yes.
Girl.
She was supposed to go to Arizona and have this whole life, and her family ended up drawing her to California, so that's how she got there. And she still worked for other celebrities as their housekeeper, and then was always saving her money and seized this opportunity. And then from there she just grew her business. So I grew up with that. I grew up around people this is when mental health was not called mental health. It
Right.
was, lots of other
Derogatory
terms and names. Yes. And just growing up with that understanding, and I think just normalcy. So I'm actually a special ed teacher now.
Okay.
Because it's not something that's to me different or alarming. Like, we're all special anyway.
Right.
So to separate it, it's still something that's, I think, kind of an industry norm that's not great.
Right.
It's definitely advanced, but I ended up in education, I think, for all of those varying reasons.
Right. Seeing your grandmother at least lend herself and providing a space for other people. I can say caring for them, right? But definitely hands-on. You going into education was emulating her from the respect that seeing these students and wanting to, and that innate desire to not just be a teacher so that they can get the curriculum, but really caring for them in the process too. As your students, which now you're being a special ed teacher, that makes perfect sense to me now. Because I didn't know that. I did not know that. And 30 years is a very long time to do anything, but especially, it takes a special person to be able to have the patience, yeah, to and be that consistent, and then still be able to maintain your own faculties and do something else outside of, that. Be a wife, be a mother, be a business, an entrepreneur. Like, how dare you? How dare you? Like, so you're very, come on, girl.
And I explored because I said, this is your shot. Don't box yourself in, like you're saying, being limitless. So I taught various grade levels, and I was, what's her name?
Who?
She sampled all the Goldilocks syndrome.
Goldilocks, who ate all the porridge.
I found, the one that fit me. And now I work at a continuation high school, so it's credit recovery.
Okay.
Students who are in danger of not graduating because they're behind in credits. And I always like to preface credit recovery to, really advocating for those students because they get a bad rap. And it's people don't understand that when your child gets to high school, if as a parent, if you're making decisions sometimes that it's not their fault, so they get behind in credits or whatever, and that we give them what we call a second chance to catch up and be able to graduate, and I help them do that. So yes, the case carry for students who are behind in reading and math, and then I also teach a couple sections of U.S. history. So
yeah, like that's the snap. So the studio audience is snapping because you're saying it the way you're saying it, but for those of us who don't live in the bubble of you, we're like, that's right. We're like, wow, like that's huge. And I mean, yeah, so, cause you're, I don't know, I'm trying to partner or draw a line from just my natural amazement of you, right? Because if you was just like, yeah, I sweep floors and I occasionally clean the toilet too, I'd be like, wow, oh my God, you're so fabulous. But really, right? Exactly. No, I mean, like that really is, Jimese, like that really is.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then you've been doing that for 30 years, like,
yeah.
Okay, so switching gears, I want to talk about the other things you've been doing for quite some time, and that is raising 2 Black sons. Your what, left and right ventricles in your heart?
Yes,
right?
yes. Tate and Leo. Tate is 13, Leo is 8. It's been an honor that I was chosen to be the vessel for these 2 beautiful, beautiful humans to come to the world. So yes.
And you know, I'm gonna ask you, because I asked Nick Cobra Johnson in my other podcast, managing anxieties. First of all, do you have any anxieties?
Girl.
Right. But how do you manage the anxieties that you have, in this climate, in this world, 2022, and all that we see and know that's happening, not just necessarily by the police, but by other people who just take it on upon themselves to play God, right, and be the judge and jury. And how do you manage the anxieties and then find balance between rearing, these powerful young Black men and instilling in them to find their own voice, right? To be passionate and go out into the world and be fearless and go after everything that their hearts desire, understanding the environment that they're going to be doing all of this in. How do you handle that?
And I'm hoping that sharing this really helps someone, especially women of color. I feel that as Black people, mental health, like I said, very taboo subject. And, I used to just hear, aside from my grandmother's business or my family's business, she had a nervous breakdown. Did she go in the kitchen and just start literally physically going down? Yeah. What does that mean?
What does that mean? Exactly.
And there's always, the core of something, like where did those problems stem from? And, we weren't, especially during that time, the women then were not delving into self-care. That was not a term that was used at all, So for me, I was experiencing my mother's illness and just being bombarded with that. And I remember the first time I had an anxiety attack and knowing, not knowing what it was, but experiencing it. And it was the scariest thing I've ever experienced in my life. I was in Kmart on 3rd and Fairfax.
No, ma'am. Not the location.
I remember all of a sudden, and it was a very stressful time, but I had always, been taught to manage your stress and you just deal and, so I kept it all in, kept it in. And I remember all of a sudden this started flashing. My heart started beating really fast. And then my hands started getting sweaty. I couldn't control any of it. And I was always a person that I could control it, especially my emotional state.
Right.
And to never have that freedom, not even that, just the freedom to be vulnerable with any of that. And I remember just feeling like this sense of panic And then I still didn't tell anyone.
Wow.
I got on the freeway and drove out here to Ontario and
Wow.
then flew to New York.
No, ma'am.
And I remember being in New York and just on vacation and feeling like, oh my gosh, you're going to lose it. You're going to lose it, and then you're going to be on the street. Like, this is how it's spiraling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're going to, oh my gosh, what if you're just like on the streets and like, then who's going to help you? You need medicine. Just, all of that.
Oh, wow.
And I got to a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I was visiting my friend Brian. I told him what I was experiencing, and we just talked about it, and he was just like, oh my gosh, I would never, all the people that love you, we would never let that happen. And we literally were having our own therapy session and just me managing like those feelings. So at that point, I realized you've got to, number one, stop doing that. Stop holding it in. Talk about what you're feeling. You have to process as you're processing.
Okay.
Otherwise you're like this, like compression pot it's bubbling over. Do you want the lid to just blow off?
Right.
So doing that, and then over time, just really knowing how to be gentle with myself, because that was not something that was taught either.
Did you ever figure out the source of anxiety? Was it from something that was stemming from the boys, or was it you don't know? It just.
I mean, at this time, I wasn't a mother. It was my mother's illness.
Okay, you did say that.
So
you did say
shared in a lot of that stress with me.
Yes.
And just, I think that was just one incident that it could have been something else that triggered that. But that was the thing at the time I was going through.
Right.
And just throughout the years, like I said, being gentle with myself, and also, therapy wasn't something that was ever talked about when I was growing up. So, being comfortable with experiencing therapy, and then finding the balance of, once I became a mother with my children, I just knew that I wanted to provide a platform for them to have this safe space to be able to express how they feel. So I would talk to them about different issues that they were going through.
Might need to go to a commercial break. But keep going, Jimese. I'm sorry.
No.
Listen, you all, this is a very informal podcast, so you liable to hear a couple of things going on.
Yeah.
But, okay.
So, so just always, having this open exchange with my boys.
Okay.
Yeah, just, I know that where we live is, they're the one of a few, and just being honest and having that conversation. And I will say that it started because I don't let them watch the news or anything like that, with those hard pressing kind of issues, but it started with the election.
Oh wow.
The first one. And
with Obama?
My son, Tate was 6 months old when Obama was elected.
Okay.
I held him up to the screen and was like, yeah, And then by the time he was in elementary school was when Trump was being elected. And
wow.
He came home one day and was like, this guy's I don't see anything wrong. And we were like, okay. Not that.
Oh, he didn't see anything wrong with Trump.
Yes.
Okay.
And so we were just like, okay, let's explore this. What do you mean?
Right.
And just he's good for everybody. So we had to have that hard conversation about the reality, not so much swaying, just about what his reality was like. This is how this experience can impact you. This is who you are. These are some of the things that you as a Black young man could encounter. And we'd never had to talk to him about that. And I was like, yeah, it's time.